EU countries are set to vote on a historic overhaul of the bloc's border and migration rules later today, including plans to set up prison-like reception centres for asylum seekers.
Well, joining us now is GB News presenter Nigel Farage. Nigel, this is being dubbed as a historic overhaul of migration and asylum rules in the EU, is it?
Well, it's an historic U-turn, isn't it? I mean, in 2015, they put in place the EU's asylum policy. I was there. Next to Mr. Juncker in the European Parliament. And basically what it said was anyone that crossed the Mediterranean, set foot on EU soil, could stay. And I warned them. I said it was lunacy. I said millions would come. Sure enough, they have. The political implications have seen a very, very dramatic rise of parties of what you call the populist right. Is that any surprise, given cities like Malmo, for example, have been completely transformed by vast numbers of young men coming from entirely different cultures. And now they're panicking. So this week we've had a big U-turn on several environmental targets put in place by the European Commission. Now it's migration. It's saying we're going to get tough. And all of this is because as we head towards the European election, which take place between June the 6th and June the 9th this year, at the moment, Eurosceptic parties are topping the polls in 9 countries and are second or third in another 9. So this is Brussels, this is national leaders saying, we understand your concerns, we're getting tough. Is it going to help them? Is it going to stop the rise of the populist right? I doubt it very much indeed.
I suppose a deeper question as well is, will this actually materially turn out to be delivered as policy? Or is this a sort of pre-election bung to try and stop the rise of the AfD in Germany or the National Rally in France, or indeed we've seen in the Netherlands as well, Wilders? So many of these parties have been growing and advancing. But I suppose the big question will be, will the proof be in the pudding?
No, of course not. It's noise. Can you imagine if they start to put tens of thousands of people in virtual prison-type conditions in Italy? I think our friends at the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg might get involved pretty quickly and say this simply isn't right. It contravenes many of the most basic articles. So no, I don't see any of this actually happening. I don't see any of it materialising, not at least at an EU level. But what you are seeing are individual countries now taking very strong stand. I mean, Hungary, Poland, basically now refusing to take anyone that has come into the European Union from across the Mediterranean. There was supposed to be a compact on what was burden sharing, but no, it's not happening. So actually, migration is one of those that threatens the very existence of the European Union and even Schengen. This idea that we can move freely between countries without stopping our car, without showing a passport. Even that in an age of increased worries about terrorism, even that's under threat. And we've seen times when, in the last couple of years, borders have been put back. So this question is really existential for the future of the European political project.
Yes, and closer to home, you've been revealing on your show this week some things the government don't want us necessarily to know about the Rwanda plan. Tell us, what's the most shocking or enlightening thing you found out this week?
Well, on the 7th of March, Prime Minister Sunak stood behind a podium with the slogan, "Stop the boat," and he said, if you come in across the English Channel, you will not be able to claim asylum. You will be detained and you will be removed. And I was shown some internal Home Office documents from pretty much exactly the same period, which told us things like, actually, every single person had the right of an appeal process that last up to 180 days. So Sunak's claim people would be gone within weeks clearly was wrong. We only had the facilities to detain 1,000 people, and many of those who we detain are people who've come to Britain, committed serious crimes ahead of deportation, and the list goes on. Every revelation that I saw in that document, they were briefing ministers, and I guess ultimately the Prime Minister, that the Illegal Migration Act wouldn't actually change anything. And yet he continued with what I think was a grand deception. And now we learn last week from the Home Affairs Committee that virtually every single person that has come since the passing of the Illegal Migration Act last July is now, would you believe it, in the asylum processing system. And I think this is one of the reasons this government is in such trouble. They stand up and tell us things. They stand up and promise us things that they even know themselves simply aren't true. And that really makes people angry.
No, it's a really important point. We are out of time, but I do want to squeeze in one final question, Nigel. In a word, yesterday, Esther McVey, the Cabinet Minister, said on this channel that you should get a peerage, that you should be appointed to the House of Lords. Would you accept one?
You know, I'd be even more unpopular in the House of Lords than in Parliament.
That's never stopped you.
Going into this House of Lords, I promise you, is not an ambition.
Well, there we go. Not a no, but we'll see. Perhaps we'll put the cat amongst the pigeons. Nigel, thank you so much for joining us here on Good Afternoon Britain.